welcome to the Mind, Body, Soul experience here at Olympia. We're on the Oracle TV pop-up studio, stand 24, and I'm here with author Margaret Coles. Welcome, Margaret.
Thank you.
Now, how has the exhibition been so far for you?
Wonderful, amazing. There's so much to see, and you sort of feel you want to get a little bit of everything, but then you think to yourself, well, I must dedicate a little bit of time to things that really interest me. But I mean, there just isn't enough time. I could have been here for 2 days, really, to see everything I would like to see.
Now, what are you doing here today?
Well, I'm here to talk about my book, The Greening, which is based on the life of Julian of Norwich. She was a medieval mystic. She lived in the 14th century, and she had a series of visions of the crucifixion, in which she received some very benign and beautiful messages. But the paradox was that these messages, though they are so loving and benign, given to her, she says, by Jesus on the cross, in her day, they excuse me, in her day they would have been considered heretical. So it took a lot of courage for her to write her book. And what I've done with her teachings, which I can tell you a bit more about, I've taken them into the life of a modern journalist working in Fleet Street, because that's my own background. I used to write a column on the Sunday Times. And so here is Joanna, who's an ethical journalist trying to work to her own standards and principles, but being put under increasing pressure to compromise those principles. And of course, what's quite interesting is that when I wrote it, that was not a topical subject, but by the time I'd finished it and got it published, of course, it was a very topical subject.
So you were being guided yourself to
Well,
sort of even,
so.
you know, this sense of synchronicity with you writing about
Yes.
the subject.
Yes, I think so, yeah. So I take Joanna on a series of adventures. When we meet her, first of all, she's having an affair with the Foreign Office Minister, who is manipulating behind the scenes the political events she's reporting. And of course, when she encounters Julian, this really puts her conscience on the line. It all comes to a head when her editor tells her that she needs to interview and basically smear a whistleblower who is blowing the whistle on a government scandal. And that's actually based on something that happened to me. Not that anyone threatened me, but I did break a story about the government line in The Guardian many years ago. So this is what puts her on the line, and she has to risk everything in order to pursue the truth. So that's the story of Joanna, but Julian was an absolutely extraordinary woman. I don't know how else to describe her. She had this series of visions when she was 30, which was in 1473, and in these, 1373, I beg your pardon, and in these visions, she was given these messages from Jesus, she says, and the messages were so loving, you know? She was told that God is all compassionate and loving towards humanity, that far from condemning us or judging us at all, he looks upon us with pity and not with blame, that there is no anger in God, and far from wanting us to come to him as miserable supplicants, he actually wants us to recognize that we are his darling children, and he welcomes us as darling children. So there's not a whisper of blame or judgment or any of those things that you sometimes found, well, very much in her day, you know, hellfire and damnation, medieval church. But even today, you don't find that message preached in many pupils.
Yes.
I mean, paradoxically, Rowan Williams, the former Archbishop of Canterbury, who gave this year's annual Julian lecture at Norwich Cathedral, he's actually endorsed my book. So, you know, a great Christian, a great modern Christian like that is saying, yes, she's got the answers, and yet the church, to a large extent, is still preaching the need to ask for forgiveness. And not, as Julian says, forgiveness is already there. All you have to do is accept it, which is, you know, it's different.
Yes. So it's quite radical in a way, compared to
Absolutely.
the way a lot of people are interpreting
Yes, it is.
dogma, you know.
I know, isn't it? That's what's so exciting
and
about it.
And it came from the mouth of a woman as well, which
Yeah.
was obviously, in those days, extremely radical. I'm surprised that they let her live, to be honest.
Well, what she did, you see, she recognised that she needed to dedicate her life to transmitting this message to the world and to the people. She called her even Christians, by which she meant ordinary people. So she became an anchoress or a hermit, living in a little cell attached to St Julian's Church in Norwich, from which she took her name, because nobody knows what her real name was, and nobody knows what family she came from or anything like that. And she lived for the next 40 years in this little cell, and during this time she pondered the meaning of the visions, and she meditated, and then she wrote her book. a revelation of divine love, which is now considered to be a spiritual classic. And this book, somehow or other, was kept safe through the centuries. Maybe a few people would have known about it in her time, but it certainly would not be known widely, because had she been discovered, she would have been accused of heresy. And of course, as you know, heretics were burnt at the stake.
Yeah, yeah.
So an amazingly brave woman, extraordinary
Absolutely.
woman. Yeah. And you can still go to her cell. The cell was obliterated by German bombs during the war, but it's been on the site of the cell. There's a reconstruction, and you can go there and you can meditate, or you can light a little votive candle.
Oh.
It's such a lovely, lovely place, a wonderful atmosphere.
And when you were writing this, did you feel anything, any real connection to Julian? Do you feel that, you know, you were spiritually linking to her and that she was guiding you?
I did feel guided, yes. I mean, I wouldn't be so, you know, arrogant to say I was being guided by Julian, but I certainly felt I was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I certainly felt that, because I worked quite a lot in prayer,
Yeah.
in prayer and meditation, I certainly felt that there was a guidance and there was a strong purpose going through it, yes.
So you were the channel, really?
I felt in a way, but I also thought the book's got to work as a piece of literature.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a spiritual book, it doesn't proselytise. And I had two people as my readers throughout it. One was my sister, my late sister, who was a very spiritual woman.
Yeah.
And another was a girlfriend who was a journalist who professed herself to not be spiritual at all. So I had that, she judged it simply as a piece of literature. And she said, yeah, this is really good, it's a page turn of the story, it's taking me along.
Wow. Well, I look forward to reading it.
Thank you very much. I'll sign you a copy today.
Thank you. Yeah, so are you going to go and give a talk
I'm
and
going
lecture?
to go and give a talk and maybe sell a few books a bit later
well,
on here.
you know, we better not keep you.
Thank you.
Or
Thank
Julian,
you.
because I think that she wants to speak through you in a way. That's what I feel.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well, I think that it's happening anyway. I mean, maybe that's a bit fanciful for you, but it's sort of, I just feel that, you know, when you have a
Yes.
genuine story and history like
Yes.
that, and you're able to bring it forward
Yes.
in this modern day of communication,
Yes.
then it's a
Yes.
great honour.
Well,
But I
yes,
feel
it
that
is.
they love it. From my point of view, I feel they love it. That's really, to be able to bring it through with purity and integrity is amazing, isn't it? After all these hundreds of years, how incredible is that?
Well,
and now we can
yes.
share it with the world.
And some experts, some theologians who are experts on Julian, believe that her teaching was kept for our time
Oh, how interesting.
and was intended for those of us who are alive today.
Because in many cases you would have expected it to have been destroyed, or she would have
Well,
been
you
flushed
would.
out.
Absolutely,
yeah.
you would.
So she was
Yeah.
protected, wasn't she?
Well, I think so, because when Henry VIII sacked the monasteries, you know, and he destroyed the monasteries, it's amazing that what would have been a simple little book in English, and is believed to be the first book written in English by a woman, that this was saved when they had all these glorious missals and psalters, which would have been worth a lot of money to
Yes, of
sell.
course.
But people think that what must have happened is that a monk or a nun fleeing to the continent must have slipped a copy of this book into their luggage, because the first known copy popped up in the National Library of France a few hundred years ago.
Well,
So
wouldn't it be
that's where
interesting
she-
to find out what really happened? I mean, how mysterious.
It's a huge mystery, yes.
Wow. Well, we better not keep you from
Thank
the
you.
minute. They're waiting for you now. Thank
you very
so
much.
Margaret.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Thanks very much.